On today's show, we're continuing to look back at the regular season before the Cavs playoffs start, and we're going to talk about what we learned about the 2022-2023 Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's dive in.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarrell. Jake Stevens is producing as always.
I've never heard of the Locked On Podcast Network. Are they new?
Yeah, we're a really good, churning along podcasting.
Acquaintances of them.
Yeah, today's episode actually is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price. That's guaranteed. All right, Evan. Let's talk about what we learned. I'm gonna let you go first. Give me your lesson number one. So 2 segments of this. We're each gonna have a lesson, and then we're gonna talk about awards in segment 3. So Evan, what's your first lesson?
My first lesson is Darius Garland is worth every penny in that Supermax extension. Like, obviously, he had that nuclear level leap in year 3. I think a lot of that can be predicated on the fact that the Cavs just had no offensive production other than Garland, especially after Rubio and Sexton went down for the season. But this year was kind of do or die. Like, okay, the Cavs gave you the bag. Now you got to kind of have to go out and prove that you deserved it. And you and I are big believers in Darius, and I think a lot of our friends, colleagues, associates, whatever you want to call them, are too. But it's a fair question because you're committing a lot of money to a guy you view as the anchor of your franchise. You're committing 25% of your salary cap to him. And the fact that he's able to match his numbers statistically from last season, all while sharing the floor with Donovan Mitchell, is super impressive. But you're starting to see the evolution and growth more from him as a player. I think defensively there are still concerns, but you're seeing some of that selfish edge sometimes at least I advocated for, where sometimes the Cavs just need Garland to rip a couple shots to maybe get them going on offense. But just how in his bag he is and how creative he is, just probing and manipulating defenses and bending them to his will with his playmaking, has just been so fun and just kind of surreal to watch at times. There's some no looks and fakes and just creative passes that Garland just utilizes in general that it's refreshing with a younger star, because you don't see guys that are just so quick to pass like that have such a strong offensive repertoire scoring wise to begin with. But Garland validated the Cavs organization's belief in him, and I mean, yeah, they're thinking they're lucky stars now that the CBA allows multiple Supermax players, but Darius Garland, again, was worth every penny in that Supermax extension, and credit where the credit's due to the Cavs to just take the best player available when they picked a kid who tore his meniscus and hardly played in college and just kind of rode with it to make him their franchise guard.
Should note that it's not a Supermax unless he kicks in, but it is the rookie max extension. It is not the
My apologies, the rookie the designated rookie max extension.
There you go. Yeah, that Supermax is a different thing. So this is going to be my lesson segment 2. So we're going to turn this lesson into Darius Garland corner. Evan, he is not going to make all NBA.
He is not, no.
But here's the thing. I think he's if you're making your big list of guards, I think he should be on that list. Here are the guards this year that have higher expected wins from dunks and threes, just like a catch-all analytics kind of stat. Here are the point guards that have higher than him in this category: Luka Doncic, Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving, and Stephen Curry. That's the entire list. That is the entire list of point guards who have added that. You throw in other guards there, you're going to, Shea's on there now, Donovan Mitchell's on there now, but he's still 7th in that. If you go to EPM, the players above him: Lillard, Doncic, Curry, SGA, Irving, Halliburton, Harden, Mitchell, Holiday, Paul George, who's a wing. I don't know why he's a guard in this. And then there's Garland. He's ahead of Booker, who obviously only played fewer games. John Morant. He's ahead of Morant. He's ahead of Bane. He's ahead of Fred VanVleet. He's ahead of Trae Young. He's ahead of Bradley Beal, Chris Paul, De'Aaron Fox, Jalen Brunson, LaMelo Ball, Jamal Murray, et cetera, et cetera. I think he's had a really good year, and he has taken a backseat. He just has. This could have been a situation where he got frustrated because like he was this ascendant all-star last year, really the face of the team last year, the guy who made everything work.
Yeah.
And then Donovan Mitchell comes in and takes his place. And Evan Mobley's coming up. And like, look, maybe there is like some ego behind the scenes that we don't know about. Like, I'm not saying that there is or there isn't. Like, we don't know. But I think it speaks so well of Garland that he has just, I think, had just such a good year. Like, he's shooting career best from three. He is, his assist to turnover ratio is better than it's ever been. It feels often like he is just like there's a stretch where he felt like he was racking up like 10 assists and like 2 turnovers like every single night. He has been, I think, just sensational all year. Like if like maybe I watch him more, but like I would have him like pretty on par with Brunson, who gets like a ton of love as an All-NBA guy. Like I've just been so freaking impressed with Garland this year, where like like he is absolutely worth every penny he's going to get, and you should feel great about this backcourt if you're going forward.
Oh, absolutely, and Jalen Brunson's great. I think Trae Young, depending on how you really feel about him as a player, but like has the potential to be great. Like Tyrese Halliburton's really awesome too for the Pacers, but like Darius Garland is kind of emerging as one of the best point guards in the Eastern Conference. And like you said, like there's a lot of just expected win statistics and a lot of advanced analytics. And I just think the biggest one that sticks out is the assist to turnover ratio. Like last season, that killed the Cavs a lot, where Darius Garland was careless with the ball. And sure, there are some nights where he can turn over it a little bit too much, but if you ask him about it, he said, listen, I'd rather be aggressive on offense and try and get my teammates involved. And if I turn it over a few times, I'll live with it if it results in us winning. And clearly, like, as you had noted, the way Garland has played has impacted winning, but the fact that he is upping his assist totals while being careful with the ball, and all while taking a back seat, as you said, just to maybe this Evan Mobley resurgence and the arrival of Donovan Mitchell, like it's just been really fun to watch him continue to grow as a player. And I talked about Isaac Okoro in the first of this kind of two-parter we're doing, but Darius Garland is another like case study of one, good health, like knock on wood for that one. I guess he dealt with aches and pains all season long, especially at the eye at the beginning of the year, but more than anything, like player development in the Cavs, like really putting in the time, energy, and resources to a dude that they clearly have indicated is their franchise point guard going forward. And I do think about this a lot, and we can end this segment with this. Nekias Duncan said that Darius Garland is the closest thing we have to Steve Nash in the NBA right now, just in terms of just like shiftiness as a playmaker. Do you agree with that sentiment? Because I feel it sometimes. It's just some of the like really, really crazy and creative passes he executes in the pick and roll.
I think he's like to me it's like a blend of like Nash and Dame and because I
agree with the Nash and Dame one. Maybe Chris Paul not so much.
It's the Paul thing and how much I trust him with the ball in his hands.
Oh, okay.
And being just like a little bit of a smaller guy. It's like this is a team with Donovan Mitchell on it, and if you told me like I had to turn the ball over to someone to make the right decision the last 2 minutes in the game, I would pick Darius Garland. Yeah, I think that highly of his decision making. I think that highly of how well I feel like he picks his spots. Like there are times where like maybe sometimes even like it feels like to a detriment, but like I think one of the really underrated things of this Cavs season that Garland has nailed, that like this doesn't work unless he does this, and it's one of the reasons I think so highly of this season. And it's kind of like to some degree like it's like his own version of like the Chris Paul like knowing how to pick a spot, control the flow thing. There's times where like you could tell like another player would have taken a pull up, another player would have hit a floater or tried to draw a foul or something, and he keeps the ball moving, keeps people engaged. He's searching out better looks for his teammates, and we can't like put a value on that. But I think it is truly one of the things that has made everything work in Cleveland is his willingness to do that, take on that responsibility, and be that kind of guy when he really doesn't have to be if he didn't want to be. There are lots of other players in this league that are very good passers that have chosen not to do that stuff. And look, Evan, I think Garland's at a point now where like go back to his draft class, like he's one or two of who you would pick in that draft. Like the Zion injury stuff is just such a big deal. He's ahead of RJ Barrett. Like, you know, I think would still be ahead of him, but like if you feel a certain way about the Ja stuff, I'm not gonna call you insane if you have like kind of worries about some of the Ja stuff.
I agree with that sentiment. I do think about how a scout was talking to me about how if you just break down like Darius Garland's entire body of work, and maybe if he played an entire season at Vanderbilt, there'd be a different conversation between him and John, who's the best point guard in this class. But I agree, like Cleveland, credit to their scouting department, is able to find maybe the best or second best player in the respective draft class in Garland and Mobley, like they have, and Darius Garland has been great, and I agree with everything you said. We could sit here and gush about him all day, but I trust him with the ball in his hands and clutch time decisions for the Cavs. And I'm excited to see just kind of like what the next step in his evolution is as he continues to learn how to coexist with Donovan Mitchell. And again, the most impressive thing to me is he made clear sacrifices to make Donovan Mitchell work, and I think that's the unselfish part of it with like younger stars you don't see. But like the fact that it was just more of a seamless fit, and I think that's a lot of it, just maybe those two willing to make sacrifices for each other, but like Garland just willing to take a back seat and just let Donovan Mitchell grow and acclimate and maybe make it this more of his team this season. Like that's the most impressive thing for me. And again, he's locked up for the foreseeable future by the Cavs, and he's worth every penny of it.
He sacrificed much more than one Donovan Mitchell. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets for your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the music, sports, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. The best thing to me by the Game Time app is the last-minute deals. You can keep your eye on the games and events you want to go to and find the right deal last minute. I know I might be using that for Guardians games, big Guardians games all summer. I think people should absolutely be taking advantage of this for the upcoming Cavs playoff games, which are going to be a hot ticket. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. They have the deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, all one word, all caps, $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so Evan, I'll give my first lesson that just touched on Garland. So you hit on this in kind of we hit in this first one, but the Donovan Mitchell trade was just like so worth it. And the other thing I would have hit on, I think, if we'd done like this for a full show, is the defense like really held up despite some differences and little things being different and whatnot. But I think about the way the trades that were made last summer a lot, with Mitchell going to Cleveland, DeJounte going to Atlanta, Rudy Gobert going to Minnesota. We've talked about this, but like I think only one of those teams is happy right now. Well, and I think if you're the Cavs, you're in this position where it's like,
is this offseason only?
Yeah, okay. I'm not talking about the KD one is its own different thing, and some of these other trades are a different thing. Those two trades, have not like worked to the degree that I think those teams hoped. I think you look at Cleveland and it's like, okay, you got a guy who had the best season of his career, who is motivated as heck in a new situation, who helped your team take that step forward that you wanted to take. The Cavs, I think, would have been better this year than last, just factoring in better health and stuff. But would they have gone from being what they were last year to, a team with like the best defense in the league and one of the best net ratings, if not the best net rating? I haven't looked at where they finished up in 51 wins. I don't know if they would have taken that big of a step forward. You got a bona fide superstar in Donovan Mitchell, a guy who's going to be all NBA, a guy who I think deserves to get some MVP votes. He shouldn't like win it or anything like that, but like he should get some votes. He should get some recognition for the season he's had. And your team is set up going forward in a lot of different ways. So to me, I just come away with this thinking that this trade, there's no, look, the picks, all that stuff. Go get the guys that are this good. And the Cavs correctly identified the right one to trade for in the summer, it feels like.
Well, producer of the show, Jake Stevens, may cut out your entire feed and just play his newest track, because he has said multiple times that he would have never traded for Donovan Mitchell. His words, not mine. I can. Jake
actually is just like still like on Rudy Gobert Island. He's just like he's like, I love France. I love teammates.
Okay, listen, I love France too. So, but I don't enjoy Rudy. But the idea of Rudy Gobert, Joel Embiid, and Victor Wembanyama sharing a floor together, it's gonna be fun. But
maybe Joel Embiid too. He's technically eligible for
that's what I said.
Oh, I thought you said. I just in my brain just thinking about like Wemby and Gobert and Embiid.
Oh, you're all good, homie. But to your point, the Rudy Gobert trade for the Wolves has been a disaster. They gave up 5 first-round picks for him, and they didn't make the playoffs. They're fighting for the play-in, and they suspended him. Like, rightfully so. He punched a teammate. And sure, you can make up all the platitudes and whatever on social media after the fact, whatever. But that's unacceptable. I think this DeJounte Murray situation is like he didn't play to the expectations, or maybe just how he played in San Antonio this season. There's just a lot of uncertainty with the Hawks in general and how they function, and maybe we need a little bit more time with Quinn Snyder running the show to get a full understanding of it. But at least in the immediate returns, it's disappointing for the Hawks because they gave up a lot, especially this is a guy Trey advocated for. This is disappointing for the Wolves because they gave up a ton for Rudy Gobert. And when you look at the Cavs, there was maybe some negative perceptions and recency bias about Donovan Mitchell after Jalen Brunson and Luka Doncic tore him up in the playoffs. And just like the fact that he doesn't play defense, and like, hey, there's some defensive concerns about Darius Garland. Like, there were a lot of, and just the fit between Garland and Mitchell in general, like there were a lot of legitimate-esque-ish maybe concerns with how these two would fit, and it's just been seamless. And as you said, like Donovan Mitchell, maybe it's just because you and I didn't get up to or stay up to watch a ton of Jazz games during his time with Utah, and maybe the only interaction I saw was on early national TV games or whenever the Jazz played the Cavs. But Donovan Mitchell is a bona fide superstar. He is first team All-NBA in my eyes, but he will be an All-NBA player. He's not going to be MVP, but he's certainly Cleveland's MVP. But like he has become reinvigorated. He's admitted on several occasions that he's having fun playing basketball again, and like he's found his love for the game a little bit again, just spending this time with this Cavs team. And it's been a very easy fit, and I'm still just pleasantly surprised that it went somewhere. Like, this is the 99th percentile outcome if you're the Cavs when you acquire Donovan Mitchell. Like, sure, you want to be maybe higher in the Eastern Conference standings just so you can beat your chest on regular season standings, but we'll see how this postseason goes. But for up until game 1 through 82, it's been a pretty much a seamless fit, and the Cavs got a superstar in his prime, and that's really rare that you kind of see those trades happen. And it's exciting to see kind of what the next steps in this evolution are, not just for the Cavs, but for just Mitchell, period, because there's still room for growth and improvement in his game, and he's only going to get better from here as the more comfortable his team gets with one another.
What's your other lesson?
So my other lesson this year is I highlight it real quick. Oh, that's still segment 1. My apologies. I was down on Karis Levert for a while. I had a lot of questions. I still sometimes do, whether it's between they brought in Mitchell, they brought back Rubio, they still had Darius Garland. I thought Karis Levert was kind of going to be a trade chip, but he's become so malleable as a player, especially post All-Star break, and kind of just really fit the needs of what the Cavs just require out of their six-man, that he's carved out a really ideal role for the Cavs. And I don't know how much money he's going to get in free agency this summer, but if I'm Cleveland, you make a concerted effort to keep Karis Levert and maybe get him on a more of a front-loaded deal that rides nicely with the new TV contract. But just looking from a pure basketball standpoint, like Karis LeVert has functioned really well as a six-man for this team, has made a lot of sacrifices and didn't really like chase stats or just kind of throw up a bunch of ugly shots just to make sure that he can maximize his returns in the offseason. And I think that's a little bit impressive in itself. Just it's more so that it's not similar to Mitchell, but it's somewhat unique in it's somewhat similar, but more so unique to LeVert, that he changed his game quite a bit. Where I'm like, okay, yeah, he functions more as a six-man. He functions a little bit better not without the ball in his hands. He's stepping up defensively. He's still showing his playmaking chops, and the fact that he's kind of becoming like a reliable bench scoring option for a team that's just been exasperated in terms of bench depth at times. Like, Karis LeVert's not, I don't want to say a beacon in the night for the Cleveland, but he has been a legitimate answer, and it's a lesson I learned this season where I'm like, yeah, I'm fully on board with the idea of the Cavs keeping him around, not just for next season, but long term and just as long as they can. And if they have to use him as a trade chip down the line, that's fine. But like for the foreseeable future, like I see him as part of Cleveland's future.
Yeah, I think he's had like a very like respectable season, and I still think this team is like really missing a different kind of wing. Like I don't my read on that.
I agree, but like with Rubio just not looking right physically still, and it's hard coming off an ACL tear to be 100% right away. But again, Levert's just stepped up in the way the Cavs needed him to on a pretty consistent basis lately, and that's something you want to kind of capture and keep going for as long as you can.
Look, and I think in this situation, like you definitely would be in a position where I think you'd be in a position where, you know, like you'd feel a little differently about the bench right now if Levert wasn't playing the way he did. I'm curious to see like I want to see how he looks in some of the smaller league wing lineups in the playoffs before I kind of like crystallize exactly what I feel. But like I feel like I need to look at Okoro and this version of Rubio and like everyone that isn't the main four guys through that lens to some degree. Like I want to see what Stevens and Wade and like is there a point where they just like Danny if like Danny Green like somehow becomes like the most trustworthy bench guy for in the playoffs, like that to me will be indicative of something that needs to change and be upgraded going forward. And that might be true anyway. But I think for this regular season, Levert has definitely been like a really needed piece to help kind of navigate some of the stuff. Like he's not and shouldn't like be in the 6 minute of the year running, but he's had like a really nice kind of season and and I think you're right to identify that it's a different kind of season than maybe we would have expected. All right, let's talk about awards after this, but first, got to tell you about our friends at PrizePicks. To play, pick 2 to 5 players, and if they go score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you win. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It is just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport you watch. This includes the NBA, the NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, WNBA, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, bunch more. They offer safe and fast withdrawals. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, let's talk about awards a little bit. Evan, so you said earlier that you would have Mitchell on your first team All-NBA. So I would agree with that. Who would your first team All-NBA be?
So I actually voted for, or I don't have a vote. Neither does Chris.
This is our Locked On. Yeah,
this is our Locked On. So I participated in the Locked On podcast vote. And I voted Mitchell first team All-NBA.
So did I.
Steph Curry next to him just because Steph has been that great. And then it was a tough toss up after that because like I'm like, oh, SGA's been great too, but it was Mitchell, Curry, then SGA, Luka, and then I had Dame.
You're saying those are your. I'm saying I want your full first team, not like guard. Just
my full first team. Okay. Yeah. So it was Mitchell, Curry, Adetokounmpo, Tatum, and Embiid. That was my first team.
Yeah, I don't have Curry on the first team. I went with SGA because I think SGA has had just like this crazy season, and he's played more games. And like Steph has been incredible. I just think the minutes and the games played.
That's a fair critique.
Has a factor. That's really like one of the tricky things with all these like all NBA things. Like Mitchell played 68 games. Cavs were 44-24, I think, with him in the lineup. That's a really good win pace. But like none of the like even like the MVP candidates all played in the 60 range again. Embiid played 66, Jokic 69, and Giannis like 63 or something like that. So like all of these guys have like weird things. Like on the Just Basketball show, Brendan was making the case for Devin Booker, and he's like, look, this is a weird year. 50 games. I'm just like I can't even get there. And Curry thing is like right at 55. Mitchell, it seems like kind of just if you like listen around and read stuff, it seems like he is going to get first team All-NBA. And like that is a really, really big deal. Like this is going to be the first time he's ever made an All-NBA team. And for him to, I think, play the best basketball career to really deserve that, it's whatever comes next. That is a real accomplishment to me.
I agree with you. I don't know if he'll get first team necessarily like you and I
think he will. I think if you listen to listening to a bunch of people break down their votes and reading some awards columns, it feels like it is headed that way. to me. Like, if you read the tea leaves on a little bit, it feels like Mitchell is going to get rewarded for the two-way play, being on a better team. Like, honestly, if I had to like guess and like bet on like who first team All-NBA guard would be, I think it's going to be Shea and Mitchell.
Well, based on the leaked votes, or just the votes that NBA Twitter is accumulating, you're not far off, with Mitchell having 4 first place votes, SGA having 4, and then Luka having the other one of the 9 ballots that have been identified so far. So I think he'll be first team or second team, just depending on how it goes. And that's just the beauty and maybe sometimes the frustration of the NBA, because there's just a lot of talented play across the board in Adam Silver's NBA, and it's ideally what you want when you want a competitive product 1 through 30. But I agree with your SGA point, but like Donovan Mitchell's just been otherworldly, and maybe it's just more of a crowning achievement of his just effort and commitment to reinvigorating his game this season. If the first time he gets All-NBA honors, it's first team All-NBA, which it's still weird to think like he's never been named to an All-NBA team or even been named to it as an All-Star starter. Like, that's also weird for me to think about.
Yeah, he had just an unreal year. All right, let's go to Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think like there's any other Cavs that are in like line for any of these.
This is my pick. It's Evan Mobley's Defensive Player of the Year, folks. Let's get real here.
Okay, look, here's the thing. I want to like just be like very pragmatic about this. It's like people are gonna get like mad in your look. I voted for Mobley in the Locked On thing. I've talked about it. I talked about it on the Just Basketball Award show I did with Brendan. Like, I would vote for him if I had a vote. I think people that are like on Cavs Twitter in particular getting like really mad about this should think about 2 things. Number 1. You watch the Cavs much more than anybody else, and you may have seen him in person. That is absolutely tainting your view.
Absolutely.
It just does. Like I saw like, you know, Sean Coleman, love you, former host of Locked On Grizzlies, did a video for Grizzly Bear Blues where he's like Triple J should be unanimous Defensive Player of the Year, and that's ridiculous. None of these guys should be Defensive Player of the Year. There are 4 like very legitimate candidates. Mobley,
one of these guys will be Defensive Player of the Year. None of these guys should be unanimous.
Exactly. Like there are 4 legit candidates: Triple J, Mobley, Draymond Green, and Brook Lopez. Those are 4 very valid candidates, all with their own candidacies, all with their own quirks.
With an honorable 5th mention to Giannis as well.
But yeah, I mean, but like I think if we're like kind of breaking down like where the award is at, and like that, but that's the thing with Brook. It's like, okay, he is this amazing rim protector, but like is Giannis really the best player, defensive player of the team? Is Drew Holiday maybe the best defensive player on that team? You look at Memphis. Like, I think that for me, like the only reason I don't think I would pick Triple J this year is really just because of the minutes and the fouls. And like Mobley's gonna have played like 900 more minutes than Triple J. His block rate isn't as high. You know, like Triple J like might like per minute that he's out there been the most impactful defender in terms of volume, in terms of all that stuff. But I think like Mobley's minutes and the versatility of what he's done is where his case is. He should be first team all defense. He should be someone that if you can get like plus odds on him to win Defensive Player of the Year next year or the year after, you should slap money on those odds, because like I think he's gonna win one sooner rather than later at this trajectory. I don't think I would vote for him. I don't think it is like I would like honestly like shrug and like be like, sure, you could pick. Draymond's the one I have like the most qualms with, just because that's like an average defense, but he's been sensational as he always is. If it's Mobley, if it's Brook, if it's Triple J, I don't really have a problem with any of them. I think like honestly, as good as Mobley's in year 2, like let's just think about the fact that this is a year 2 basketball player that like people are like super mad online about maybe not winning Defensive Player of the Year. That is also in itself insane because of how good he is this young.
It's even more crazy that he's gonna likely be named first team all defense. I feel like that's not a lock, but it feels very, very certain that he will be named first team all defense, just because the field is so deep between those 4 players you mentioned, and there's like you can make a valid case for any of them. But just the fact that this is a Cavs podcast, I wrote about this from Monday's story and Down Euclid. Evan Mobley's 9th in the NBA in blocks, averaging 1.5 per game, and to match that, he has 2.8 fouls per game, which is pretty impressive in its own, with Triple J averaging 3 blocks a game and almost 4 fouls as well. And there's a ton more games under Mobley's belt too, but Mobley has 59 games under his belt where he has contested at least 1 shot, and 33 games this season where he's had multiple blocks. The highest being 8 blocks against the Pistons in November. And just for me, though, it's just how multifaceted he is as a defender. Like, I talk about this a lot just recently. Like, there was a possession where he defended Spencer Dinwiddie 2 or 3 times in a row and looked very comfortable in isolation. And I dug deeper into it, and he's defended the 3rd most isolation possessions in the NBA. And the ones ahead of him were Nick Claxton, who is kind of another guy who's in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, according to some, and then Brook Lopez as well. But Mobley allowed the least amount of shots made against him at 31.8%. Like, it's crazy how multifaceted he is and just how comfortable he is as a player. And like, he's really cool, calm, and collected when asked, like, do you feel any pressure? He's like, no, not really. I just think the team needs me to do it to win. And like, it's just odd. And I think about how JB Bickerstaff effuses praise on him. We effuse praise on him a lot. But like, the quote that always sticks with me most is, he's a year 2 dude, as he had pointed out, and Bickerstaff pointed this out. Like, guys in that position, whether you're year 1 or year 2 on a bad team, usually go shot hunting, or they look for ways to maybe just maximize their offensive opportunities rather than focusing on the less sexy stuff and the less counting stats and just focus on the defensive side of the game. And Mobley's just been this defensive catalyst for Cleveland. He's the reason why they're arguably the top defensive team in the league. They're number 1 in defensive rating. I think that has a true impact on them being number 2 in net rating overall too.
Yeah.
Because like, we've watched his offensive game grow, but like, his bread and butter is defense, and he's only in year 2. And to Chris's point, like, credit where credit's due, if you're able to get like a futures line this far out, throw some money Evan Mobley's way, whether it's for Defensive Player of the Year, all defense, or shoot, maybe even all NBA at some point. Like, maybe he joins Donovan Mitchell, or like kind of just enters that stratosphere on his own.
He is on the trajectory of like, it can be this two-way thing, like an all NBA thing is like very much.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say he's on a path to becoming league MVP. I mean,
that's like another, like, I think he gets all NBA first, and like, I think all-star first, and then we can kind of where that goes.
I'm very bullish on his upside as a player. He just continues just to keep leveling up like this. I'm just like, what the heck is he going to be when he hits his final form? Because I can't. And like, I mean, if big men are just like the way big men have become more conventional in today's NBA is just fascinating. And I think Wemby is just going to completely break the internet when he plays like his first like 10 or 15 NBA games. But like, the Cavs have a truly unique specimen in Evan Mobley that's a 7-footer that functions like a guard but can do everything on defense. And that's just so crazy to kind of watch on a night-to-night basis. And I'm excited to see it in the postseason. And if we're just talking about regular season play, it's awesome that he's in running for Defensive Player of the Year. It's not worth getting mad over if he loses, like Chris said, but I feel like all defense is certainly realistic.
I think if you look at these cases and think like that, like one guy is so separated from the other, I think you've lost the forest of the trees. You are just in your own weird little bubble, and that's fine. But I think you're like wrong. I think all like the teams between the Bucks, the Cavs, Grizzlies are separated by like half a point per 100 possessions to rating. Like, these are very, very thin margins. Each case has its merits. Each case has different merits. It is its own super complicated thing. All right, we're gonna end there. Thanks again to listening to Locked On Cavs, making us your first listen every day. Tons more stuff to come this week. Big crossover with the Locked On Knicks guys to preview round 1 of the NBA playoffs. Until then, I'm Chris. That's Evan. Thanks again to Jake Stevens producing as always.